My friend's parents have just commissioned me to help them build a PC for a Christmas gift. My budget is £300, which is a tight budget, but it is a budget that I can work with. While £300 isn't going to get you a particularly powerful PC, it is going to be able to build one. Now admittedly, I had to pull a few moves that many people may not be entirely comfortable with, so just keep that into consideration when you're building this PC, as I used second-hand RAM, and I did not put in any case fans to save on budget. Fortunately for me, my friends have told me what exactly the use case for this PC will be. It will only be used for two things. 1. To play Roblox, and 2. To do word processing. This is very reassuring, as it means that I will not have to do things like put in a graphics card, kit it out with 16 gigs DDR4 3600 MHz memory, or fancy RGB that gives every epileptic kid within a 10-mile radius a seizure. Simply put, what I build will suffice as long as the CPU isn't from the 10th century BC. If you do enjoy the video, do make sure to like, subscribe, and whatever it is that you do when you like a video. I won't be doing stuff like this too often because, believe it or not, PC building is by no means a cheap hobby, and even cheap builds require investments of at least 300 quid. While those of you with a full-time job may be able to pull out that much money on a weekly basis, I am a student. Being a student makes you poor by default unless you have rich parents. And a quick disclaimer before I move on with the video. This is not a building tutorial. I will not in this video be teaching you how to build a PC. All I'll be doing in this video is informing you on what I did with £300 and how the experience would look like. Now onto the video. Now, as you can imagine, the specs on this machine is nothing fantastic, as you can probably guess, but there are three things that I would simply refuse to do no matter the price of the PC. First, I refuse to use a dual-core processor for the PC. While dual-core can work if you are super tight, it will impact the overall experience, at least with gaming. Secondly, I will not use a hard drive. Hard drives make the entire OS feel slow regardless of the performance of the other hardware. And lastly, I will not give them 4 gigs of RAM. 4 gigs of RAM is too little, at least for integrated graphics, as the iGPU shares the system memory with the rest of the PC. The specs on the machine include an Intel i3-10105 with a new black stock cooler, which I was very excited about.
Oh sheesh, Intel redesigned their cooler. Yo, Owen, Intel redesigned their cooler, man. Yeah, it's black now. Jesus, this is cool. And the cable is now sleeved too.
There's also 8 GB of dual channel memory, DDR4, a 248 GB SSD, as well as a 450 watt power supply from Corsair. I'm using some MSI motherboard I found on Amazon which seemed pretty good and provides her with enough of an upgrade path to add a graphics card in the future if she can find one. And with that out of the way, let's get into how well it does what it's supposed to do, that being word processing and playing Roblox. Word processing on it seems, it's not something that's particularly demanding by any stretch. I would imagine that maybe something like Excel will probably be able to punish the system a little more, especially with big charts. But given that my friend's sister is still in school, it is safe to say that she will not be using Excel to do something like process the transaction history of everyone in a 500-person company anytime soon. And now, Roblox. I would say that is all the rage these days, but it is certainly a very popular platform amongst the little kids, kind of like Fortnite. The best part about Roblox, which makes it very popular amongst little kids, is that it can run on any hardware, making it very easy for some kid with a 12-year-old tablet to enjoy the latest games on its platform. With that said, I have picked 3 games to benchmark, for no reason other than more people are on it at any given time than the population of some small towns. Those games are Funky Friday, Bloxburg, and Phantom Forces. Starting off with Funky Friday, and it can already be said that this PC is not good if you ever plan on streaming or recording content. I am not very good with customizing a recording setup, so maybe there's a way to fix this in OBS if you know what you are doing. But right out of the box, trying to record 1080p footage will overload the encoder, making the recording look something like this. Fortunately for me, Intel has their own graphics command center, which does have screen recording functionality on it, and it works fine, so we'll roll with that. After fiddling around with it for a while, I managed to get it working. I was going to benchmark the system before someone challenged me, and I accepted and had a few games with him. As for the performance, with medium-low settings it seems to perform okay. Even with the recording on it, mostly maintained a stable 60 FPS, although frame times seem to be a bit inconsistent. However, the performance was good enough for me to do very well in Funky Friday, so it should work for most people, given that it's not a particularly hard game. Next up is Bloxburg. To be completely honest, I don't play this game too much, if at all, so I kinda just did the most basic things in the game and hoped for the best. It seemed to run quite well, and I even tried to run it at max graphics. As expected, this didn't turn out too well, but I was still pleasantly surprised by just how well it runs on max graphics. And finally, Phantom Forces. I really can't speak on behalf on if this PC is good for Phantom Forces or not, as I am not good at first-person shooters. But if I were good, this would seem to be a good enough PC for the game. The frames were consistent, but my aim wasn't. Just as an extra benchmark, I tried running The Sims 4 on this PC, given that I can see my friend's sister wanting to play this game soon. I created a new character and played one day of The Sims 4 on this PC. The game works just fine, as medium graphics causes the frames to hover somewhere between 40 and 50 frames per second. It might struggle a bit with bigger households, but a one-person and one-dog household in the middle of the city seems to run just fine with this system. And now with that out of the way, let's get on to my conclusion. How good is a £300 PC? For £300, you can build yourself quite a good system. Integrated graphics technology has progressed a long way since the days of Intel HD graphics. While an equivalent AMD system would probably perform better, graphically speaking, given that its Vega lineup of integrated graphics is a favorite amongst budget gamers, I couldn't get my hands on one because of a silicon shortage amplified by the manic consumer nature of Christmas shopping. For most people who either don't play high graphic AAA titles, or for people who just don't game, this is a perfect system to get for them. It's quick, snappy, and a significant upgrade when compared to whatever previous system they are running, most likely an old Dell Optiplex from the late 2000s. From those who desire more graphical horsepower, it's very easy to customize this setup by adding a graphics card that would fit the wattage of this power supply. Maybe perhaps a GTX 1060 6GB or a GTX 1660, as in theory they are good budget cards that can add much needed graphical horsepower to the setup. In practice, probably wait another year before even trying your chances at getting one. There's also something to be said for the new Intel 12th Gen CPUs, with their new Alder Lake architecture as well as the hybrid nature. Their low-end CPUs could receive a significant performance improvement compared to previous generations, depending on both the execution of the lower-end Alder Lake chips, as well as the price of the lower-end Alder Lake chips. When I built this PC, lower-end variants of 12th Gen Intel processors weren't on the market yet, as I built this before Christmas. Thus, Alder Lake was not a consideration that I was going to be making, as the cheapest i5 would have already ate up two-thirds of my budget. So just keep that into consideration, as this video may be outdated by the time I upload it. Thanks for watching, and if you liked the video please do like it, and if you don't like it then dislike it. I won't be doing PC builds too often because I don't have a lot of disposable income, so this £300 PC experiment is unfortunately going to remain a one-time thing. See you in the next one.